You'll never know after you have a worship time like that, should you just go ahead and dismiss and go home, because you run the risk of getting up here and just messing it all up. But we're going to be in Exodus 15 again, and it's amazing how God works stuff out. I was, Pastor Maxo from Jamaica texted me this morning. He was just seeing how I was doing, and anytime I get an opportunity to tell him to pray for me, I do. And we've been in the book of Exodus, and we've been talking about miracles and how there's not a person in the room that doesn't need a miracle. I mean, you look in your life, even though there might be someone who might need one more desperately than you, we're all in need of God, a special touch from Him. And I just said, pray for me on blah, blah, blah. See, I don't ever tell y'all nothing. So, and I didn't get detailed, but I just said, I need some miracles. And I says, I believe in miracles and I'm believing with you. And then we get here and then we're singing that song that I'm not saying I've never heard it before, but was just so perfect for the morning that I've just had and prepared me to be able to bring the message today. I believe in miracles, and I believe in you. I believe in the one that can perform them and do them. And the thing that encourages me today is that I know He's aware of every need in the house. He is not only aware of every need in the house, He is able to be able to do whatever it is that you need done in your life. He's able. And we just have to be ready. This morning I want to talk to you about 3 days later. I said on the call-in post yesterday that it doesn't necessarily have to be 3 days later. In the message that we're going to see this morning, it was 3 days, but it could be 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 hours. It doesn't take us long to go from the mountaintop to the valley. Last week, we saw the joy of a new beginning for the Israelites. Over the last few weeks, we've seen how they were delivered from Egypt and the process that God used for that to happen, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart and him getting to the point to where he just let God's people go, and then how God took them on the long route to be able to bring them to the Red Sea because they wasn't ready to go the other way yet. And then we saw the Red Sea miracle. And then we saw what brings miracles into our lives. And we just have to believe God. We have to follow God. And we have to walk by faith and not by what we see. And we've talked about how important it is for you to face your Red Sea. Whatever your Red Sea is, you got to face it. And you got to deal with it. Maybe your Red Sea is God healing some wounds on the inside of you. Maybe life has beat you up. Maybe a marriage gone bad and you've been beat down and depressed and discouraged and you got to face that Red Sea so that God can heal you. Maybe you've got health issues, or maybe you're believing God for something in your life that you want and desire greatly. You got to face it, because the one who can remove the Red Sea and divide the Red Sea is here today. And I don't know if you believe in them or not, but I believe in them. I believe in miracles, and I believe you do too. And I believe that He can show up here today and He can deliver one. As they came across that Red Sea, the Israelites had a brand new beginning. They had been in bondage and had been in slavery, but now they were embarking on a new journey and a new adventure. And after they came across that Red Sea, we're not going to read the verses this morning, but if you want to look at them in chapter number 15, Moses and Miriam, where you at, Miriam? Miriam, his sister, they start busting loose in a song and a praise to the Lord God Almighty. And as you go through that song of what they were singing to the Lord, and I don't know how long this period went on, but they were shouting to God and they were praising God because they just saw with their own eyes God work a miracle right before them. They got a front row seat. You remember Moses told them, just be quiet, just be still. You don't have to say a word, just sit back and watch. And they watched, and they watched God perform a mighty, mighty miracle right before their very eyes. And then it says, chapter number 15, in verse number 21. It's not there, but I'm going to read it for you. It says, let me back up. Miriam sang to them, sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. I didn't want that verse. I wanted 22. It says, then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. Now, I don't know if they carried water with them and they were running out, or if they'd been 3 days without it, but I know that they spent 3 days looking for water. Now, get the picture now. You just experienced a God miracle in your life, a big miracle. And within 3 days, you're already facing a dilemma and a trial. Maybe it's physical, emotional, relational, spiritual, but you're facing a trial 3 days after you just experienced a God event, and now you're not going to have the faith to be able to believe that God is going to take care of you and provide for you. We read the story and we look right here and we see, wow, how could that happen? How could that be? But you know what? It happens in our lives more than we would admit. Of how we are on the mountain, we've seen God do some incredible things, and He's worked miracles in our life, and then we'll come up on something that is severe to us, and it may be difficult for us, but it's nothing like what God just delivered us from, and we don't have the faith to believe God to be able to intervene in that situation after we've witnessed what He's done in the past. But you know what? The Christian life is like that. It shouldn't be like that if you're maturing in the Lord. Sure, you're going to have your ups and your downs, but they shouldn't be, as you mature, they shouldn't be as close together. Not that you're not ever going to dip, but if you do dip, you come right back. And even if things don't change, you believe in the God that can bring the change. The children of Israel were just taking their baby steps. So they weren't nowhere near where God was actually taking them. But He's going to get them there. And you know what? God's going to get you there too. He's going to get you there and He's going to get me there. But I want you to notice something. At the end of verse number 21, after the Red Sea, and a lot of times we don't see the transition here, but this is where a lot of people stop in their walk with God. They come through the Red Sea, and they're saved, and they've been set free, and they've been delivered, and now they're a child of God, and now they're on their way to heaven, and that marks the end of the journey. I mean, I'm saved, I know I'm going to heaven. I don't have to do A, B, C, and D and continue on. It says Moses led them from the Red Sea because God was taking them somewhere. He was taking them from their salvation experience, Red Sea, to the Promised Land, to cross the Jordan River into a land that was flowing with milk and honey. But a lot of people stop. They stop after that. They don't seek God after that. And that's something that's really not only something that we would see here, it's something that you see everywhere you go. But I'm here to tell you, God has got so much more than Him coming into your heart to live. Man, you got to get to know that one. And the more you get to know Him, the more you will see Him working in your life. And the more you know Him and the more you see Him, the more you will like Him and the more you will love Him and the more you will want to serve Him and the more you will want to do for Him and the more you will want to worship Him. It's a continual process. 3 days away from the Red Sea, we can't find any water. And then what do? What's the first thing they do? They don't grumble against God. They start grumbling against Moses. Moses, it's your fault again. It's your fault again, Mo. If you ain't to listen to God at that burning bush and came over here and got us, then we wouldn't die of thirst out here in the middle of the wilderness. But then all of a sudden they see some water and they run to the water. Can you imagine being that thirsty? I mean, I got that way one time this week to where, not anywhere like this, but you know how you just get so dehydrated, you've been working all day, and man, you just need something to drink, and you feel like your body needs it right now. I mean, you got to have something right now, and I didn't have anything. I got in the car and went, and man, when I was in the store before I ever even paid for it, and started putting it down. But you know what? If I would have been that eager and wanted it that bad and went in the QT and pulled it up and it would have been bitter, I would have been disappointed. And that's what happened with the children of Israel. They run down there to the river, to the water, thinking that their thirst is going to be quenched. And they taste of the water, and the water is bitter. Not only does sometimes you think in your life that God doesn't answer your prayer or doesn't do things the way you want Him to do them, He actually, sometimes we think that He actually does it in reverse, that is totally against the way that we were asking Him to do it. We needed water and we found water, but the water was bitter. I mean, why would God do that? That just makes you ask, why would God do that? How many times do we ask that in our lives? Why did God do that in my life? I don't understand. Why did God put me at this Red Sea? Why did God put me here at the waters of Marah? Why did God let this go wrong? Why did God let me just screw everything in my life up? Why did God? Why did God? Why did God? But you know what? There's always a reason. There was a reason for the children of Israel being in front of the Red Sea. And now there's a reason for them being at the waters of Marah. Because you know what? You don't know how strong your anchor is until you experience the storm in your life. When you experience storms in your life, then you realize the importance of the anchor. You realize just how valuable the anchor is. And the anchor, our hope, is in Jesus. So it's in those moments that we realize just how desperate we are for God. So they grumble against Moses and complain. We don't ever do that, do we? We would never complain and never grumble and never have a bad attitude, but they did against Moses, and Moses didn't get in any dialogue with them. Immediately, it says in verse number 25 that he cries out to God and he prays to God, and as soon as he prays to God, he sees a tree. And God says, take that tree and throw it into the river. You say, well, that doesn't make any sense. What in the world is throwing that tree branch into the river going to do? As soon as Moses threw that tree into the river, those bitter waters became sweet waters. And I'm here to tell you, you might be facing some situations in your life right now that are bitter. They've left a bitter taste in your mouth. They've left a bitter attitude in your soul, a bitter spirit. You don't like what it is that God has allowed in your life. You don't like maybe what somebody else has done to you. You don't like the pressure that you're under because of A, B, and C. and it has allowed you to kneel at the riverbank of bitterness, and there's a bitter taste there in your mouth right now. Another situation, a difficult situation for you that God wants to deal with, to be able to set you free, to be able to turn those bitter waters sweet again. And what I want you to see this morning, and we're going to go right through this. Why did God allow this? Let's look at verse number 25, and let's read 25 and 26. It says, what shall we drink? Then he cried out to the Lord. The Lord showed him a tree, and he threw it into the waters, and the waters became sweet. There he made for them a statute and a regulation, and there he tested them. You think that things just went wrong, that people were just being evil and malicious against you, that your boss just doesn't like you, that it was his fault or her fault that your marriage has fallen apart, you're financially overwhelmed because you thought it was all these other things when actually it was a test. It was a test from God. Just like this was for the children of Israel, same way for us. It's a test. God is testing us. He's trying us. Will we trust Him? Will we approach this through the eyes of faith, focused on Him? Will we allow this to come in and disrupt our emotions and disrupt our attitude and let it bring anger and bitterness? Or will we seek the Lord and thank Him for another day and thank Him for what He has brought into our lives, because you know and you realize that He's about to do something great and wonderful and awesome. But notice it says there that He tested them to be able to do this statute, this regulation, and then He said, if you give earnest heed to the voice of your Lord God, to do what is right in His sight, and give ear to His commands and His statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you, which I put on the Egyptians, for I, the Lord, am your healer. You know what He just told him? He just told him, I'm Jehovah Rapha. And you know what? God was teaching them another aspect of His character. See, we think, okay, what is the book of Exodus? Well, the book of Exodus is exiting Egypt, but it was literally God making Himself known to the children of Israel. They didn't know Him. So God was making Himself known. It was almost like we do with a baby reveal. You know, it's a big thing today. Back when we had our first 3 kids, man, we didn't even know what it was till it came out. Now today they're having baby reveals. Well, all of these situations in the book of Exodus were God reveals. God was revealing different aspects of His character to the children of Israel so that they could learn that, man, we can trust Him. That they can learn that God is giving them His word. And if you obey my word, then I'll be Jehovah Rapha. I'll be your healer. None of these diseases will strike you and bring you down. And I'm doing this to test you. I'm doing this and giving you my word to see if you can commit to my word and believe that I am Jehovah Rapha, that I am the healer, that I am the one who refreshes and revives your spirit, and I will be here to heal you of any ailment that comes into your life. He was teaching them that He could be trusted. So number 1, you with me? Let's talk about lessons about life. You know, I was thinking yesterday, seems like I've talked a lot about problems and trials. It seems like more the last stint than I ever have. But then I got thinking about it. I looked in the book of Exodus and I says it ain't nothing but problems and trials. I mean, Isn't that what life is? John 16:33, Jesus said, in this world you will face tribulation. You're going to face trials. You're in this world, you're going to face trials, and you're going to face trial after trial after trial after trial after trial. And you're going to win some, and you're going to be defeated by some and depressed by some. But God wants you to know that in this world, you're going to face them. And in this world, you're going to face things that are hard. You're going to face things that are difficult. You're going to face things that are not fair. You're going to face things that are evil. But you know what? God has designed us in the midst of this world that we live in to be overcomers, to be conquerors, to be winners, not to be losers, not to be squashed by the enemy. He's designed us in the midst of all of these things that we face, not to be trampled by them and defeated by them, but for us to prevail over them through who? Through Jesus Christ. And as we trust Him, as we travel this journey, the tests are familiar in a lot of ways, but they go to different levels and depths of where you're at in your relationship with God. That's where God is taking you. But the trials never end. The difficulties keep coming. And it's a God reveal, a God opportunity in your life. Let's learn some lessons this morning about life. Let me give you some things here. Point A. Let's talk about the mystery of it. Isn't life just a mystery? There's so much about life that is a mystery. Because there's so much about life that we don't know, and so much about life that we don't understand of how, life is beautiful and life is wonderful and it's a gift from God. But it's a mystery. On this wonderful journey that God has given us, it's a mystery because it's so unpredictable. You know, you can be going along 1 minute and then your life totally change in a few seconds. You know that. You can have a job 1 minute, not have a job next. You can have a mama 1 minute, and your mama be here on earth and be in heaven the next. Life is so unpredictable. We just never know what's coming down the pipe. It's so many twists and so many turns and so many tangles out there in life that it is a mystery. Sometimes, you look at your life sometimes and you know that you've made choices that have taken you on different routes of whether in every category of your life, and you think in your mind, you know you didn't make all the right choices, but God somehow took you in that circle and took you through the twists and the tangles to bring you to where you are. And you know that where you are is where you're supposed to be now. But why did you have to do all that right there to get there? It's a mystery. We don't know. God, if you wanted me here, why didn't you knock me over the head right here and show me that's where you wanted me? All those tangles and twists and turns had a reason and a purpose to bring you to where you are. So life's a mystery. Second of all, not only the mystery of it, but the mixture of it. Man, you're talking about a recipe in life. Man, God mixes everything in the pot of your life. Romans 8:28 says He mixes the good, the bad, the ugly, the things you like, the things you don't like, the things you want, the things you don't want, the people who love you and the people who don't love you, the people who encourage you and the people who curse you, and He mixes it all together. The mixture of life, of how we can go high 1 minute and be low the next minute. Things can be good 1 minute and they can be bad the next minute. We can experience great victories 1 week and the next week we can experience agonizing defeat. There's just the mixture of life, of how we go from one thing to another, and how we can be cruising along, not have any trouble in this area of your life, and have all these struggles in this area. Then you get this area where you think it needs to be. Then you start having problems over here, and it's just a mixture that you can't make no rhyme or reason out of a lot of it. But you know that God is up to something, and that God is doing something in your life and mixing it all together. Job said, 14:1, man who is born of woman is short-lived and full of turmoil. Well, that's depressing, isn't it? But I think what God's trying to teach us, that in the midst of turmoil, we can still have life. In the midst of turmoil, we can still have peace. In the midst of turmoil, there can still be blessings. And the number one thing that matters about this mixture in your life more than anything, as you're facing these bitter waters, is your attitude, is your mindset, because your attitude determines your action. So immediately, if you can identify yourself as being like the children of Israel, that the first thing you do is complain, point the finger. It's your fault, Moses. It's your fault, whoever that is or this is, and you complain. Attitude is everything because it sets the mood. It sets the direction. So the mindset that we've got to have is the mind that Christ had. And we got to take it to Him and seek Him, because that sour attitude is just going to make whatever you're going through more bitter than what it really is. The mystery of it, the mixture of it, but then there's the master of it. The master of life. Everybody here has a master in their life. It's the master of it. 3 days later, they went from God being their master to following Him to forgetting so quickly about what God had done for them. You know, I love, Stephen asked a question a couple Wednesday nights ago about, he was asking the class, he said, do you like to study the Old Testament better or the New Testament? Well, I like the Old Testament. And the reason why I like the Old Testament is because I like stories, and I like to tell the stories, and it's just more interesting to me in a lot of ways. But when you take the children of Israel from where they're at right now all the way to where God has taken them to the promised land, Moses is going to tell them through God over and over and over, he's going to tell them, when you get to where God has taken you, don't forget. Don't forget. Don't forget the God that opened up that Red Sea. Don't forget all of the miracles that He performed. You see that cloud out there that you're following? You see that pillar of fire out there you're following? You see that manna that's falling out of heaven that's feeding you? All that's coming from God. Don't forget that. That it's God that's meeting your needs, and it's God who's leading you in the pathway that you're going. And when you get to that good land and you start eating those big old grapes and those oranges and those apples, and you don't even have to hardly work the land to grow that squash and that corn and for those chickens to be putting out all those big, beautiful eggs, when you get to that good land, and you've been prospered by God, and God has touched your life and taken you where you never thought you would be, don't forget God. So easy for us to forget. And we forget when the attitude, the master of life, goes from being God to becoming us. And you know what? A lot of us pray for prosperity in our lives. But you know what? Prosperity and being in the land that's flowing with milk and honey is going to come with more challenges than you ever thought. You think it's going to be less, but it's not. It's just going to be as much, and it's going to be on a different level, because now God has blessed you and He has given you A, B, C, and D. And just because you can write your checks to pay your bills doesn't mean that God is the master in your life. Just because you got a job that you've been able to go to for 20 years doesn't mean that He may well be the master of your life, but it doesn't mean that He automatically is. And if you get all that right there, the Bible says to whom much is given, much is required. God expects more out of you. So therefore, whatever it is that you go through over here is going to have a different level of intensity when you get to where God is taking you, because you should be more responsible. You should be more faithful and more diligent. There's the master of life who has your allegiance, your affection. And then there's the magnificence of it, the D. The magnificence of it. Life is just really magnificent. It's just amazing to watch people in their life go through some of the darkest valleys that you can even sit there, and even me myself, not even being able to comprehend what that person is going through. And I think that that is better to admit to the person, listen, I don't know what you're going through other than trying to give them spiritual advice. Just be there for them. But I've seen so many people that have went through those dark valleys that I can't even imagine, and I don't know what it feels like, but my heart goes out, and the level that I feel can't even compare to what they're struggling with and what they're dealing with. But to watch people in the midst of that be an overcomer, and to watch people in the midst of that be a fighter and to be a winner. I can't tell you how many people that through the 20-something years that I've been pastoring that, I hate cancer. And the reason why I hate cancer is because I have had to minister to so many of people that I love down through the years that was a part of our church family, this church family and church families in the past. And to watch somebody go through that struggle and that difficulty and what it does to your body and how it just wears you down. I hate cancer. If there's any disease out there I hate cancer. But I've seen people that have went through some struggles, some of the most intense fights that you could ever see, and have peace. Fighting for life, trying to live, trying to overcome it and stay here a little longer. But you know what? Even if God chose to take them home or to leave them here, they were overcomers. And the reason why they were overcomers is what they had on the inside that nothing, not even cancer, could take away. And that's God. And when you see that, man, that is magnificent. It is such a light when you see people go through traumatic experiences and you see the hand of God. You see them as they persevere in adversity, and they win and they conquer. I want to give you a lot of quotes right here before we go to number 2. All I'm going to do is just read a lot of them, but just talks about the magnificence of life and just different little thoughts. You might be able to write some of them down. You're not going to be able to write them all down, but I at least want you to hear them because God has got one in there for you. Life lessons. Life is now. Life is in the moment. Life is today. Life is short and it's brief, and we need to number our days. We need to take advantage of our days, every one of them. Today is the most important day of your life. Don't think about yesterday. Don't think about tomorrow. Life is hard. It is. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. Life is hard, but God is great. We need to learn in life forever. No matter what it is, no matter what area. Learn in every area, especially spiritually. Never quit learning. Learn forever. No matter what it is you're facing in life, you can handle it through God. You can't handle it, but through God you can handle it. You can heal your wounds. Whatever wounds you have in your heart and in your life, they can be healed. He's Jehovah Rapha. They might not be healed overnight, but if you want them to be healed, God can heal them. It's never too late. Whatever it is God wants you to do, it's never too late. No matter how old you are, it could be too late for some of you to have kids, so let's not take that too far. But it's never too late. Every day counts, so don't let one slip by. Simple is better. I've learned that as I've gotten older. Simple is better. I mean, just a simple life. I think there's a country song that says that, just a simple life. It's a whole lot less complicated. Worry is worthless. Why let it strangle life out of you when it will not do one good thing? Debt isn't worth it. It's just not. I try to tell, because I've learned these lessons over and over and over. And I've tried to tell my kids, and sometimes they just don't understand. I said, you don't ever want to buy more house than what you need, because you don't want to be a slave to your house. I said, simple is better. Okay, you two boys got to share a bedroom. Simple is better. Simple is easier, because that's going to cause you to worry, and worry is worthless. Gratitude multiplies joy. I don't know who the people are in your life, but everybody deserves another chance. And there's somebody in your life you need to give another chance. Forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself. And you know what? This is a good one. You're not always right. Not only are you not always right, you can't control others. A lot of people think they can control others and change them. You can't. You can't please everyone. If Jesus couldn't please everyone, we sure can't. So we need to make sure we please the one, and that's Him. Love matters. Don't ever let people try to divide you, because love matters and love counts. Your words matter. The little things you do for others matter. Change is good. Failure is good. Risk that we take in life expands us and brings greater potential. Fun is underrated. We don't laugh enough. I laugh a lot, and I laugh a lot loudly, but fun is underrated. We don't have enough fun. As I get older, this one right here, I used to think this was the dumbest quote ever. Age is a number. Now I'm like starting to say that. Well, it's just a number. And happy birthday, Mama. I forgot Mama's birthday the other day. Everybody say, boo! And she told me it was okay, but hey, I've been living with women and around women long enough to know when they say it's okay, it's not okay. Some people are in your life to be a blessing. Other people are in your life to be a lesson. Nothing ever goes away until it teaches you what you need to know. That bitter water is not going to go away until it teaches you what you need to know. And for some of you, it needs to be a cry out to God, heal my wounds. It needs to be somebody that you need to give another chance to. It needs to be somebody that you need to forgive. Because you're not going to get past it until it teaches you what God's trying to teach you. Number 2, learning the lessons. Not only lessons in life, but learning the lessons. Kind of like going to school. Doesn't do you any good if you don't learn the lessons. But there's so much to learn. There's so much to work on. And you know what? God is working on us, and we're having to learn everything that it is that we're attempting to learn in our lives to be able to make us more beautiful. I had such a vivid illustration of this yesterday. We've got a townhome in McDonough that I bought several years ago, and when the market crashed, and I've had some people that have worked for me that have lived there, and Ashley lived there up until she went to jail. Then I had somebody else that was living in there for the past 6 months, and they moved out. So I went in there this week, and I thought, well, man, they left it clean. Man, I can't believe it. It's clean. It really wasn't clean. I just thought it was clean. You know how you just go in there, and sometimes you look at it with the eye. So I thought, being empty, okay, I'm gonna do some work in here. I mean, I'm gonna do a little painting, do a little bit of this, and I started, and I did the cabinets, and once I done the cabinets and the countertops, then I realized that the ceiling looked a little yellow. So then I painted the ceiling, and as I was painting the ceilings, then you realize that the walls and the trim are starting to not look good. So you start painting the walls and the trim, and then you're sitting back and you're thinking, wow, man, look at those cabinets. Man, that's awesome. Man, look at those counters. Man, look at those walls. Look at that trim. But then I started noticing the floor. And you know what? It's like a process. I didn't even see these things until I started doing the first one. And then when I started doing the first one and the second one, things that I didn't see, I started to see. And that's how it's going to be in our lives. God's trying to make us more beautiful. There are things in your life right now that other people may see in your life, but you don't see it in your life. But when you begin to paint the cabinets and do something different in your mind and change up some priorities, you will start to see things in a way you've never seen them before. And by the way, the floors are something that carpet cleaning just ain't gonna fix. You know what? And there's some things in our lives that God just wants to replace. But then there's other things that He wants to renovate and restore. But there's three big problems we got. Point A, we're just gonna go right through these. We are selfish. Some of us need to go home and look in the mirror and say, I am selfish. And the reason why we struggle with the bitter waters and difficulties in our lives, we struggle with our attitude, is because life is really more about us than it is about God, or it has become about us. And we don't want the struggles, and we don't want the difficulties, and we don't want the adversity. We want our way, and we want to be right, and we want it to be fixed and fixed now. So we're prone to just be selfish. Second of all, we walk by sight. That's another reason why God cannot make us as beautiful as He wants us to be, because we're selfish, and then we're walking by what we see. And if all you see is the bitter water and you don't see Jehovah Rapha, you will never know that the bitter water can become sweet if you're just walking by sight. All you'll see is the turmoil, the tangles, and the twist, and you'll miss God. And if you miss God, you miss the solution. You miss the miracle. And then our third biggest problem is we are never satisfied. We want to know what gift we have. It's the gift of grumbling, like the children of Israel. We're professional grumblers. We always, and then there's some things, and I'm just guilty as anybody. No matter where we are in life, even if we are progressing, we're still grumbling. Still got something to grumble about. And, really we can add that to the list, that grumbling is just a waste of breath. It doesn't do any good. It's not anything constructive. We always just want more, don't we? We always just want our way. when we have not even maybe thanked Him for what we have and for where we're at, we're just wanting to complain about what He hasn't done. Maybe He will do what you're complaining that He hasn't done when you start thanking Him for what He has done. Number 3, looking to the Lord is the last one. Lessons in life, learning, and then looking to the Lord. See, when you look to the Lord, you always are having a God reveal. I ain't real crazy about baby reveals. I mean, if it's my grandkids, if it's any other kid, yeah, that's great. Yeah, hallelujah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like people ask me, would you rather do a wedding or would you rather do a funeral? Well, I'd rather do a funeral. They're quicker. They don't take as much. Weddings, man, I tell you what, man, those things are stressful. A rehearsal, and you gotta be there, and you gotta and it never fails. You get there for rehearsal, and everybody's running an hour and 15 minutes late because they have them Friday at 6 o'clock, knowing that nobody can get there Friday at 6. So it's a God reveal. How'd I get off on that one? 3 things. I've already said these. First of all, as you look to the Lord, you're going to realize He is able. He is able. Everybody say, He is able. Second of all, He is aware. Everybody say it. He is aware. Whatever your struggle is, whatever your bitter water is, He not only is able, He's aware of it. And then I don't know if you saw this in the story or not, but see, He has already provided. The tree was there the whole time. The solution to turning those bitter waters sweet in your life God's already went ahead of you. He's already provided for that water to turn sweet. Don't miss this. I read this yesterday. There's some things in our lives that we just want God. Okay, God, this water right here is bitter. I want you to take this bitter water and I want to dig a hole and bury it, and I want you to make a new river over here and give me a new river. God didn't do that. God took the bitter water and transformed it to sweet water. Don't miss the implication here. There are some things in your life that you look at that are so bitter that you think it just needs to be replaced. You think you need a new wife or a new husband or a new family or a new... You need, God, I need new. And God says, I'm the God of possibility. And sometimes I want to take that right there because it's going to be more of a miracle for me to take that bitter mess right there and make it sweet than it would have been if I just gave you a new river. So sometimes God just wants to transform what's there. And then other times He brings something new into our lives. Now don't miss this last thing, and I'm finished. Verse number 27. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water, 70 palm trees, and they camped there beside the waters. And y'all say God ain't good. Sometimes we just don't hang in there long enough to see that God has an Elim. Can you imagine after Him turning that bitter water sweet, And then them just going just a little bit up on the horizon, and they see 12 I mean, we're talking about a cruise in the middle of a beautiful coastland right there in the middle of a desert. Palm trees and springs, that means there's shade and water for them to what? To rest and relax and to renew their strength. I'm here to tell you there is a God in your life who is aware of your needs and who is able to meet your needs, and not only able to meet your needs, he's able to give you everything that you need in every area of your life. I don't know about you, but I believe in miracles. And I don't know what she's got planned, but I just want her to come, and I want them to sing that song one more time. Prayer warriors, I want you to come down front. Anybody need to pray? Falcons kick off in 55 minutes. So we still got, don't think I ain't thought about it. I have. But we got to do business with God first.